Dr. Oldham, back again with the Math Bytes, and today we're going to be talking about slope. The biggest thing you just need to remember about slope is slopes are just hills. If it's a big hill, it's a big slope. If it's a little hill, it's a little slope. And if there's no hill at all, it's a slope of 0 because you're just walking on a sidewalk. And then if you go down the hill, it's negative. That's all slope is. So when we're looking at it on a coordinate plane, we've got our positive slopes and our negative slopes. Always remember that you read slopes left to right, just like you read your words left to right. You're never gonna go reading this way. So when you read your slopes, you always start on the left side of your graph and trace your finger. If your finger goes up, you've got a positive slope. If your finger goes down, it's negative. Remember, starting on the left side. You can also think about it like little cars. If you put a car on your line, does the car go up, 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 or does it go down? Positive, negative, that's it. And then the only other thing we need to remember is that sometimes our slopes are straight lines. If your slope is just straight across, that's just a sidewalk. That's just a flat road. So your slope's 0. You can still drive on it, it's just not going anywhere. Now, if your slope is straight up and down, you are not going straight up and down that hill, unless you're Superman, which you're not. So that's why that's an undefined slope. So now let's take a couple looks at some example problems.
The first thing we're going to look at is finding the slope of a line. So when we look at a line, first of all, we can decide if it's positive or negative, but then we have to find out how steep is it? Is it really steep or not so steep, or is it flat? And so we have an example problem right here. And in the computer, it's kind of nice because it gives us the dots that we need in order to find our slope. And when we find out what slope is, we use that rise over run, which is how high you go up and then how far you go over, just like steps in your house. So when you climb steps in your house, you have to go pick your leg up and then you move forward onto each step. So we need to draw the steps onto our lines to find the slope. So in this example problem here, I've got my little dot and it's floating around, and what's nice is that it will automatically put the dot on my line when I actually find a point on my line. So like right there, it's pretty close, but it's not actually on my line. So I'm gonna move my mouse until, there we go, there's a point. So I'm gonna click, and there we go. And then I can trace this line around anywhere I need to. So I'm gonna keep tracing until I find another point on the line. So let's see, right there, okay? Now, I can click right there, and I've got a very nice little line. The problem is, that's a line, that's not steps. And I need to find steps to find slope. So I use my little no button, and I'm actually gonna cancel out that line. Still go back to where I started though. So I'm gonna start here, and I'm going to trace my line. So if that's where I need to go, make your steps. So I'm going to draw my step this way and draw my step this way. I'm just drawing and clicking until I have this nice little beautiful step triangle, okay? And now I count my rise over run. Even though I started with this point, I'm not gonna count from here because remember, we talked about we always read left to right. So, and we always go up or down first. So I'm going to go down 2, over 1, 2, 3, which means my slope is going to be -2 over 3. And there we go, we're right. So if we try another problem here, okay, and we take a look here, again, I can see that my slope here is positive because if I go from left to right, it's going up. And now I find some points. So I'm going to move my cursor around until I find one. I sometimes like to go to the y-axis to find one. It's a little bit easier. And then I'm gonna trace until I find another point. So let's see, there's one right there. Now remember, is that if I trace along that line, that's great and all, but I need to make my steps. So I'm actually gonna click off that. So I'm gonna trace. I wanna get to right here. So if I move my mouse, there's me going straight up, and there I am going over. So there's my beautiful step and my nice little triangle, and now I'm just gonna count. So up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up 6, over 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, before you come down here and you tell me that my slope is 6 over 4, you need to remember that that will simplify. If we type 6 over 4, it's not gonna be happy with us because if we have to simplify that fraction, we take a 2 out of each, divide out of 2, I will get 3 over 2. And that is our correct answer. So 6 over 4 isn't wrong, but it's not simplified. And that is how we're gonna find our slope of a line. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is graph a line. These are the most common types of problems that we do when it comes to graphing. And you probably have heard it, mx plus b, over and over again. And what's the m and what's the b? The b is your y-intercept. It's your first point that you start off on your y-axis. And your m is your slope, which we were just talking about. So if we take a look at this example problem, we need to graph y equals negative 1x, 1/2 x plus 2. Okay? Negative 1/2 is our slope, which means down 1 over 2. And my y-intercept's 2. That's my constant. That means that I'm going to start at 2. Dot. There we go. And my slope is 1 over 2. So here's what's cool. It's going to actually draw the line for us, woo, depending on our slope. So my slope's negative 1 over 2. I'm going to take my cursor. I'm going to go down 1 over 2. And then I just click my dot, and there is my beautiful line that started at 2 with my slope of negative 1 over 2. Okay? And if we try another problem, we take a look right here. Y equals 3x minus 4. So in this problem, my y-intercept is negative 4. So I'll go ahead and start at negative 4. Now my slope is 3. So if I start my slope and go 3, well, if I click that, it would be a straight line. And this isn't a straight line because it actually has an x. So I need to clear that away. I'm going to start at negative 4. My slope's 3. That means up 3, but over 1. Okay, so there's always that imaginary 1 that it's over. So we'd start at negative 4 and we'd count our slope. And there's our mx plus b. All right, so the last type of problem we're going to look at for slope is when I have the line and need to write the equation. So this is just the opposite of the ones we were just doing. So here's our line that we have already graphed, and I need to write out my mx plus b. So first thing I always like to start with is what's the b? The b is 3. It's starting at 3. So I know that that's my constant value there. Well, now I need to find my slope. And what's nice is that I actually have dots, my points, already on my line, so I just gotta count them. So it doesn't matter which one you set, it just always matters that you move to the right. So if I started, for example, right here, I'm gonna move to this point right here, not to this one up here. So I'm gonna go down 1, 2, 3, and over 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's my slope, 3 over 4. Negative 3 over 4, because we're going down. So when I type in my answer, I'm going to say y equals negative 3 over 4x. Now be careful of that, because the x doesn't actually go on the bottom. So make sure you use your cursor, so that way you have your slope times x, because that's what's changing, and your constant value was that 3 y-intercept. So I'm going to say plus 3. And there would be our first line that we graphed, looking at our y-intercept of 3 and our slope of negative 3/4. If we try another problem, trying to find, okay, so if we take a look at this one right here, all right, it's a positive slope because my line's going up. My y-intercept is 8. And then if I take a look at my slope, again, I've got these nice points here. So if I start at 8 and want to get to the next point, I'm going up 1 and over 2. So when I write my slope, I'm going to say y equals 1 over 2x plus 8. And that would be my answer. And the only thing I want to make sure to bring your attention to is that if your slope was, for example, up 3 over 1, you wouldn't have to write 3 over 1. You'd just write 3. But in this case, this was up 1 over 2, 1/2 x plus 8, my y-intercept. Ta-da!